Welcome to the Overheard Podcast, recorded live in Banff. My name is Daniel Rudel, and with me always is my co-host,
Matty Rage.
If it's your first time joining us, please don't forget to give us a little like and subscribe. Me and Matt go over the analytics every single week, and we find there's tons of people just dropping in, saying what's up, not subscribing. So if it's your first time joining us, please don't be shy. Hit the like and subscribe. Every little bit helps us a ton, right, Matt?
No doubt, no doubt.
Huge, huge. Very special guest today. It's our pleasure to welcome Mayor Corrie DiManno.
Let's go. Been a long time coming.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Hey.
Beautiful office here, right in the heart of downtown Banff. Before we get too far into it, let's check in with our sponsors over at Drink Shaft, and we'll be right back with you.
We're back, baby. Let's go.
Awesome. So if you haven't already, go down to Townhouse Liquor, get yourself some Drink Shaft. They got non-alcoholic, they got alcoholic. I like the non-alcoholic myself. Maddie?
I've been drinking them a ton at home.
Well, it's great to have just on the go. I love them for when I'm running late for work and I don't have time to make my own coffee. Bingo bango, slam one of those on the way to work. And
you're ready to go, dude. That'll keep you ripping for the first couple hours of work. Easy.
For sure. You arrive ready, then I'm not fumbling around trying to make a cup while I'm greeting my first guest. You know, it's just way easier. Go grab yourself some at Townhouse, or they got them at the Rose and Crown. Speaking of the Rose and Crown, if you're in Banff, don't miss the Rose and Crown, your go-to spot for great vibes and live music every night, 364 days a year. Head up to the rooftop patio for incredible mountain views. Enjoy a cold pint and a bite to eat. Next week on September 13th, they're celebrating their 40th anniversary.
Big. That's a big one.
Have you ever been to one of their anniversary parties?
No.
They are insane. They're giving out tons of free food and drinks. They got a VIP list that's already out, so you should have those invites already in your inbox if you are a VIP. Music starts at 6 p.m. on the rooftop for the VIP invites, and the doors to the general public open at 8. It's always a crazy time for their anniversary party, so make sure you get there.
I'll be there.
Matty Rage will be there, so go say hi. He might have some stickers for you.
Heck yeah.
So welcome once again, Corrie DiManno. Thank you so much for having us.
I'm very happy to be here. I'm glad you could see my interpretation of an NPR tiny desk here in my office. I'm excited to chat.
Amazing. We got plenty of stuff to get through today. Can't thank the town of Banff enough for, again, allowing us access to you guys and being open and chatting. It's always easier than you think to get a hold of you guys on town council, which we'll kind of touch on that in a bit.
I love to hear that.
Right on. Short little bio for our Mayor Corrie. So with deep gratitude to her grandparents who immigrated to Banff in the 1950s, Corrie has called her mountain town home since she was 1 month old. A former local reporter, Corrie was inspired to serve her community, first as councillor and now as mayor. She's also helped organizations like the Banff Canmore Community Foundation, Rome Public Transit, and Banff Pride with communications support. Through it all, her favorite way to enjoy Banff and the park is running, hiking, and biking with friends. So she's basically always on the hunt for her next trail snack. Awesome. I would agree with you there. That's definitely some of the best ways to enjoy Banff in the summer too, getting away from the crowds, getting out on the trails, you know?
Heck yeah.
I thought I'd start with a very popular question with our show. Why do you love Banff, Corrie, and what keeps you here?
You know, I love Banff for so many reasons, like so many folks that live here and visit here. when I think about Banff, I just love that we are always striving to be a leader, whether that's environmental stewardship or that's sustainable tourism. We're just always pushing the envelope of wanting to be that model community. And I just love that about us. And, on a personal note, I love that this community, cares so deeply for each other, and we come together for one another in hard times. And, for me, I've got my dad here, and we go for bike rides and we go up tunnel, and my uncle's here and we bowl on the same team together.
Oh, sweet.
Sweet.
So I have that best of both worlds where, I have this really strong friend group here, and I have a very meaningful career here. I feel like I contribute here, and it just means so much to me. And, I don't know about you guys. Another big thing for me is now I'm watching my friends become parents.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
And getting to be that Banff auntie.
Wild, huh?
Going down the slides and, going for ice creams after school and stuff like that. It's just so cool.
We're just at Harvest Fest this weekend, and let me tell you, what a family-friendly atmosphere that was. To see the kids running around loving it right in the heart of downtown Banff with that festival vibe was amazing.
That toddler mosh pit was going off the rails.
I think Gary said in his interview, he's like, the closing interview on day 2, he's like, we're going to need to have some barriers next year for the kid mosh pit. So good. Big shout out to Gary. I think those are definitely some good reasons to love Banff for sure. The community aspect. You're lucky to have family here, of course. I think the fact that a lot of us don't have family here is a big factor that drives that community aspect, especially when things aren't going great,
Totally. Your friends become your family here. They become your emergency contact. They become the one you go to when you need support. And I think that just makes us that really, strong, tight-knit community that gives us that small town feel, even though we're welcoming in millions of visitors a year.
Right.
Very true. There's almost like a subculture.
We've got a good core group of just awesome people here, right? And everybody kind of looks out for each other, and it's a good vibe, man. Can't beat it.
100%. Especially after spending the weekend in the community. You got this real heartfelt vibe,
Absolutely.
What made you want to move into politics in the first place?
When I look back now, I could kind of maybe see it coming. I was elected to my student council as a class representative, so I was one of those nerds.
Early start.
Exactly. And at the time, it was just, I really just liked talking to people, and then that translated into what I went to school for. So I got a degree in journalism, so I knew I liked hearing people's stories and telling people's stories. And then I was working for the Craig and Canyon here back when the office was still here in Banff on Bear Street. And my editor had gone on vacation for a couple of weeks, and so I had to go cover Banff Town Council. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you, I did not know anything. I didn't know what a bylaw was. I didn't know what a motion was. It was like I had entered some kind of Russian art history class.
New realm.
That is the level of I did not understand.
For sure.
But I was totally hooked. I found it all so fascinating and interesting and oddly enough exciting. I was learning, how the town functioned. And also that was a really interesting turning point for Banff. We were undergoing a series of master plans at that time. So transportation, housing, the recreation, the rec grounds. There were a lot of master plans happening. And so I was reading about the current issues and where we wanted to be in the future. And I just found it all just so interesting. And looking back, I remember sitting there one day when I was at the media table thinking, I could be a counselor. But
Nice.
you have so many thoughts a day.
For sure.
Went right out my head. And then the 2013 election was rolling around, and a friend and I went for margaritas, and we were speculating, who might run. And she said, well, you should run. And of course, I said that was crazy. And now here we are sitting in the mayor's office. So really, to answer your question, I'm here because of margaritas, Dan.
It was all down. Was that Magpie?
You got it.
That's it. So you can thank Magpie for your success, I guess.
That's where it all started.
Amazing.
Wow.
I mean, you never know. A small little idea. If you love this town enough and you have the passion for it, Like, why not?
Sure.
I mean, I kind of found myself in a similar situation diving into some of the town hall minutes, going like, what is this? You know?
Totally. And, sometimes it gets talked about as if it's these X-Files,
For sure.
And you feel like you've just discovered this treasure trove of top secret information. And then you're like, oh my God, it's banff.ca / agenda center. Yeah. And it's all here. And then you get really hooked on, oh, what is going on? And oh, that's how that works. And oh, that's what they decided. Or oh, that's what they tried to have passed, or you just get a better sense of, oh, that's the conversation.
100%, right? Like things are painted out like.
Yeah, it's everybody thinks it's like this big top secret agenda, and it's like, it's not. Even in the past counselors that we've had on the show, they're just like, I walked in there not knowing anything. It was just like boop, over my head, and they just got hooked, and here they are.
So you were 26 when you were elected to council for the first time. Today, we're rounding off your first term as mayor. What's the biggest lesson you'd say you've learned along the way?
This one's tough because I feel like I am learning lessons on the daily. Like, you just learn so much. And I really enjoy that part of this job, is that I don't know what the next day brings. And that sounds a little bit daunting, but I think I enjoy that because I'm constantly learning new things about myself, about the community. And I think that just helps make me a more well-rounded person and leader. Sure. And so I really actually enjoy that aspect. But yeah, when I think about one of the biggest lessons I've learned, it's really comes down to the importance of just trying to have that shared vision with the community, with community partners. And then that's going to help with, getting things accomplished and having that buy-in for collaboration, and then being more effective communicators. And so, I think that's a big lesson for me is trying as much as possible to have that shared vision so that we can be on the same page, so that we can work on these issues together. And that's not going to mean that we get it right the first time. For sure. But I think it's worth trying things, and then you evaluate how that goes, and then you take those learnings into the future. And so, I think at the end of the day, I've really just learned that collaboration is a superpower of ours here in Banff.
Okay.
Well, like we've said this on many episodes, that we're all kind of here for the same reasons, right? And especially those that are involved in council or administration or any type of role that you're dealing with town politics or legislation. These are the people that love the town the most, right? To put themselves and open themselves up to the public to deal with these issues when no one else will.
Not an easy task.
Not an easy task, that's for sure. So we got to commend you. You have been a great leader so far, I would say.
Thank you.
So
that means a lot.
Yeah, you've done a lot for this community in the time that you've been in charge. So we want to tip our hats to you.
What would you say to maybe some of our younger audience that maybe feels that politics isn't exactly for them, because you got into it fairly young? 25, 26. Any advice that you would give someone that maybe feels it's not really their place?
I would say, even if you don't do politics, politics is going to do you. And, that's on all three levels of government. But in particular, I believe that the municipal government affects your daily life the most. And here in Banff, I really believe that municipal government can help improve your quality of life significantly. And so I'll throw a stat out at you. 46% of Banff residents are between the ages of 25 and 34.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And so I want people to know that their voice matters and that they can have influence over change or decisions. Council looks at, so many different ways of going about solving a problem. And I want folks to know that they can be a part of that. They can help give council that political will and courage to make some of those decisions. And, again, like I said earlier, it can be very intimidating. Like
100%.
When you don't understand the language that's being spoken, when you feel that, chambers is like a strange space to you. But I guess I want people to really know that what they have to say matters, and that they very much have a stake in what happens in this community and in the future of our community. And so I would definitely encourage people to get involved. And, you know, I am definitely heartened because I have seen younger people get more engaged this term, you know, whether it was the downtown pedestrian zone or talking about a disc golf course, or in particular, when we went through the housing amendments, we had a lot of young people come forward talking about their housing stories. And so I just want them to know that their voice matters and that we're here to listen and that they have more power than they know.
Well, I think that's a big part of what our goal was at the Overheard Podcast, is to bring these issues up to maybe a bit of a younger population, because they make up a huge amount and they are the ones forward facing these issues that we're about to dive into in a little bit. And yeah, the council chambers and that whole arena being an intimidating place for a younger person, I think is like a stigma that we want to try and shatter, because people think they can't do anything or their voice doesn't matter. But in fact, you look at the numbers, like you just mentioned, can have much more impact. And the PED zone vote was kind of an idea kind of went off in my head when we were looking at the numbers. With the numbers for the pedestrian zone vote outweighed the numbers for the council election votes.
That was the
huge.
That was the single highest voter turnout since incorporation. There has not one been that has been higher.
Which
that
is
the highest,
right? So like, I don't know, that kind of hit a little idea in me of, you know, if people were a little bit more active in the selection process, then maybe we won't end up in scenarios like that where half the population wants this and half the population wants that, right? So,
that was a wild time. We covered that for like months. By the time
I feel you.
By the time it was done, I was like, Dan, can we just not ask any more questions about the PED zone? Just
but
give
it's
it like
still
a
relevant in the way that we kind of interacted with each other at that time.
Sure.
Like, it was a very divisive topic, right?
Oh, no,
and I mean, there's a lot of big topics coming up with this next election, which we're about to dive into in a bit. But before we do that, what would be some advice that you would give to a young person or anyone that's throwing their hat in for the first time?
Well, you know, it's kind of funny talking about this question right after we're talking about the downtown pedestrian zone, because that probably is not a good example of, you know, how it is on a more regular basis. But that is an example of how it can be. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you've got to withstand, you know, a controversial topic like that. You've got to be able to withstand, you know, people making it personal, saying things about you to your face, online, in letters to the editor.
Yeah.
That is a huge issue. So this is, again, it's so easy to fire off messages online and emails and stuff. And this is why we want to have you sit down with us, because you're a person too. You know what I mean? Like, and I think especially those that have run for council open themselves up to criticism when they're just trying to do good. You know what I mean? It's not like anyone's doing it for their personal gain, right?
Well, and I think the thing to remember too is that we're taking in everybody's perspective. Mm-hmm. So we're taking in one side, this other side, these other factors. We're trying to take it all in. We're trying to take in all perspectives. And when you're doing that, and at the end of the day, you know, you do our best to put in any kind of mitigative measures or what have you. But at the end of the day, you have to raise your hand and you have to vote.
For sure.
And it's kind of a binary situation.
Yeah.
And so you're going to either make a lot of people happy or a lot of people upset. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it's difficult, but we do our best to listen to everybody. But then at the end of the day, we have to agree with some of the people that talk to us, but not all the people that talk to us. And
100%. You can't please everyone in any kind of rulemaking or any type of public discourse. There's going to be a side that's angry. There's going to be a side that isn't, right? Like,
exactly. So you do your best to explain where you're coming from and why you are voting the way you're voting. You know, for me, I like to lead with data. I like to lead with vision and strategy and really just try to articulate where I'm coming from. And you hope that, you know, folks can at least understand that, even if they don't agree with it.
For sure.
But, you know, back to your original question, I don't want to scare people off by talking about the downtown PED zone. But, you know, anybody that is thinking about running, first of all, myself, anyone on council would be more than happy to talk to them in terms of what the job looks like and answer any questions they may have. I've talked to a couple folks that may be interested in running this election and happy to talk to more. But I would say the big thing is that you're probably more qualified than you think. As long as you're passionate about Banff, you listen well, you're open-minded, you've at least read some of the executive summaries of the plans. Like, don't feel that you have to read every last word of every document that we have. That's very overwhelming. But educate yourself on the current situation for sure. But then the other things will come. Learning Robert's rules in the process in chambers will come. The legal framework under which we operate, anything that's in the Municipal Government Act, that's what administration is here for as well. They are here to ensure that we don't fail, that we don't go outside of our lane. They're here to help us. So don't feel like you need to know every little thing about how this municipality works. Like, there's a system here to support you.
For sure. We talked about it with Hugh, and he's like, that was kind of the biggest thing in his eyes was the learning curve when you first get on council is massive. And it's, it's doable, right? Like, if you're tuning into this episode and you're interested in these topics, well, maybe it's for you.
100%.
Let's get down to some of the topics that we will be getting down to in this election. One of them being wildfires. Banff is a town surrounded by forests and unbelievable beauty. Unfortunately, wildfires kind of come with that territory, right? We've seen a lot of work done with the Fire Smart program to mitigate the risk. What can the average concerned citizen do to protect themselves or their home?
So absolutely, wildfire is our number one risk, and we cannot eliminate that risk to zero.
For sure.
Period. And that's scary because our summers are getting hotter, longer, drier, and the conditions are more unpredictable. But I want Banffites to be reassured that the municipality is ready and our partners at Parks Canada are ready, and we are working more collaboratively than ever. And we thankfully had such a rainy summer.
No doubt, that was awesome.
That was a blessing, but
100%.
We did not rest on our laurels leading up to this wildfire season at all. And I can throw some initiatives at you.
Well, we can see that in the last couple of days. Like, there were some spring ups in the last few days that were quickly contained and mitigated by Parks Canada. So
exactly.
big shout out to them.
100%.
Sure.
I commend Parks Canada for knocking that fire down as quickly as they did. And what's really interesting about the Moose Meadows fire in particular is that it shows how all of these initiatives are working. So they had prescribed burn happen there. They've had mechanical thinning happen there. And then because of that, the fire was slow to move and easier to attack. And so right now, currently, we're seeing the fire guard being developed to the east of us in Canmore, to the west of us in Lake Louise, and out in the backcountry, like places like Moose Meadows. And so all of that helps protect us because the spread would be slow because of these fire guards, and it'd be easy to knock down. So, we're so grateful for that work that's being done there. And then in town, we have adopted Fire Smart principles to all of our municipal infrastructure. So that was one thing I heard a lot this spring is, man, the views have really opened up. You can really see. Exactly. Right. And so we've taken down hundreds of trees. We did a lot of work, about 20 hectares of clearing out combustible coniferous trees. We still have our interagency wildfire committee that we have with not only Parks Canada, but with the town of Canmore and with the MD of Bighorn.
Communication being super necessary, right?
1,000%, especially in this situation. So again, we are prepared. So to your question, what can Banffites do to be prepared? The number one thing I would ask every Banffite to do is to sign up for our Voyant Alert. So you can do that at banff.ca/alerts. And why that is important is because we will communicate in advance of any kind of emergency notification from the province. We will communicate what's happening, what you should be doing. So it's so important that people are registered. And then, aside from that, there's so many different entry points. You can read our evacuation guide, which we just updated this spring, so that you can know what you need to do to be prepared. Your go bag, what your plan will be with friends or your family. You can also get a rooftop sprinkler kit. You can
So cool. I've
Yeah.
seen those. Like,
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool.
what a interesting. Yeah, you connect them to the faucet in your home. You throw it up on your roof, and then it's like sprinklers at the top of your house.
That's
prevent the
You're
like
just
spread.
giving
Yeah.
your roof a shower.
Yeah, this is great.
Exactly. So you can do that. You know, if you're a homeowner or business owner, you can have a fire smart assessment done by the fire department. We new for this year is we are paying you to take down any of your combustible trees. So we have a rebate for that.
Amazing.
Very cool.
So that's like a dizzying list, but it's all to say that there are many entry points for folks to feel empowered about being prepared for wildfire.
I think that's a good way to do it. The more we can address it beforehand, the less maybe we'll have to address it afterwards. You know what I'm saying? Like the slow movement of the fire, I think we saw that last year in Jasper, and how quickly that spread is a big thing to focus on. So great work from the town, great work from Parks and everyone involved. I've had Louis on before. Like, we've talked to people on the front lines of that program too, and like even the difficulties behind that, like facing public backlash when clearing trees in a national park is a pretty
Delicate.
it's a divisive topic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think about even just, let's say, several years ago, like 2017, when we saw the Verdant Creek over there on 93, and we had the smoke, and we had to evacuate Sunshine Meadows staff. And, you know, you had visitors calling in saying, is it smoky there? And then they were like canceling reservations. And, you know, it felt really apocalyptic, and it was really scary. And then when you talked about some of these things, like taking down more trees in any kind of like wildfire risk reduction program, it was like, whoa. Hang on, I'm scared, but I'm not that scared. Like, I don't want my tree to come down. And I think particularly after Jasper, that one hit so close to home that now people are really willing to do anything that it takes. And, you know, I'm really proud of how Banffites have truly rallied to do their part for fire smarting their homes and, you know, getting educated on what they can do. It's been really great seeing the community step up and take our preparedness to that next level.
I would agree with you there. Kudos to everyone out there. Keep it up on the fire smart front. We did speak to Peter Poole specifically about implementing legislation on how to rebuild the town in case there was a fire that affected infrastructure. So one of the things that I've noticed with Jasper, right, is as they're rebuilding, instead of having implemented rules on how to rebuild, they've actually removed rules that are necessary to rebuild in a kind of a haste to get stuff up, which you can understand.
Right.
He was talking about a concept of having these rules in place of how we would rebuild given this event happens, to have them in place so that we're not removing legislation instead of implementing them beforehand. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this spring, council took a look at our design guidelines, and we fire smarted where we could. So Fire Smart is very much a guideline. It's not a prescriptive checklist, but we certainly enhanced our design guidelines to things like ensuring that in the future, you know, fire-resistant materials are being used. Landscaping is going to be, you know, not the flammable kind. You know, we and thanks to Parks Canada's, I would say, you know, very much collaboration on this, we've already gotten those passed through Parks Canada. So
Amazing.
Banff is unique in that anytime we change our land use bylaw, we need approval from the minister to be able to sign off. And so we worked shoulder to shoulder on those amendments with Parks Canada. And so now going forward, there are going to be, you know, houses, properties that are built already with these fire-resistant materials and landscaping. There was a call from residents to be able to do this retroactively to properties, but we don't have the legal authority.
Yeah, that's like, there's tons of heritage buildings. This is kind of one thing that I was going to bring up, right? Is obviously new technologies in building. A lot of our town is old infrastructure, and like having, it sounds like it's already in place then to put new fire smart and, you know, better design into new projects. So
on the go forward basis. And then again, you can have your property fire smarted, or excuse me, you can have it fire smarted, but you can also have it assessed by the fire department, and you can try and do what you can if it is something like a heritage property.
Yeah, like cost associated is always like the big thing, right? Like, anyways, moving forward. Housing. A lot of residents often feel squeezed by housing affordability and availability. What do you think is the most realistic path forward?
As mayor, this is what keeps me up at night.
Oh no.
The emails that we've received, folks being on the brink of homelessness, people deciding whether they're paying for their rent or their groceries for the month, families having to leave because they can't make it work here. Those break my heart, and they're stories that I've heard for the 12 years I've been on council, and they don't get easier to hear, and nor should they. So I totally get it. I hear those stories. I understand that struggle is real, and we are moving mountains to try and make some progress, which is why I'm really happy to share information about our housing action plan. And a big piece of the movement we're seeing on our housing action plan is because we were successful with our Housing Accelerator Fund application. So this was a program that the federal government designed to really push municipalities to be bold in their thinking, and not just for the short term, but for the long term. And we were one of 6 small rural municipalities in Alberta to get this funding. So it was huge. And so really excited to say that because of the different tactics that we employed in this housing plan, we are now up to 430 new units in the next couple of years. So we have development permits for 430 new units.
Nice.
And we use this word units, and it sounds really clinical, but that's a home.
Yeah.
That is where somebody is going to be able to live. And it's just incredible. There's no greater joy than putting a roof over someone's head.
Well, I think it's cool that, again, you're getting help from outside to implement bold strategies, because obviously we need bold solutions, and you don't get those by playing it safe, right? Which there's a lot of eagerness to play it safe, being we're a national park, and construction and development and all this is always kind of questions that we're on that scale, right? Like,
exactly. So what we did was we basically just made our land use bylaw more housing friendly. So we've increased density in areas where there was good rationale in town. So if you were close to transit, if you were already close to the downtown core, if there was already that kind of density around you. And then within that, we also increased, heights where it made sense. And we removed parking requirements for new housing developments. We've also done an accessory dwelling unit program that a lot of homeowners have tapped into. So that one's been really cool.
Nice.
We've seen everybody from the large developers to homeowners get involved.
absolutely. I think homeowners being able to have those extra suites, that is it's a cool concept, right?
Well, there's a unit right down kind of around the corner from where Dan and I live, where it looks like they just took like a 2-car garage, and they literally gutted the whole thing, retrofitted it for housing, which is...
Well, that kind of it faces 2 of the issues, right? It faces the affordability for the owner of the home, and then also the demand, right? By creating more space.
Oh, bingo.
Right? So it's kind of like a win-win in those situations.
Can you imagine living in a brand new place in Banff that's all your own, and that's all you need is a 1 to 2 bedroom?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And you're helping a homeowner stay in town and pay their mortgage and grow their family. It's a really nice circular way of
doing things.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think it's the biggest thing I think facing people our age is finding the means to stay here, right? Like, do you want to start a family? Do you want to start having kids? Can you afford to stay here long term, or you're just going to end up in a position where you lose your housing and you have to, because that's the biggest thing is housing. When
I'm
you're
in that
talking about
situation
starting a family,
right now,
right?
man. Like, I'm looking for a place in the next couple of months, and it's like, especially if you have a pet, it's super hard to track something down that's available and affordable for most of the frontline workers. Like, you don't get paid a crap ton. It's not like you're making $60 an hour. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, it's always kind of been there, right?
Well, 60% of Banffites are renters,
Right.
including myself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so you feel that underlying stress of, well, what if one day my situation
Right.
changes?
What if, I hear it all the time, like, oh, landlord's selling the house or kicking everybody out. It's like people that have been there for 10 years. It's tough because you get kind of settled in and then all of a sudden you got to move and there's not really a plethora of places available to even apply for, right? So
Absolutely. But that's what we're hoping for with this program, right? Is we're working on the supply side, and Banff being 4 square kilometers and with a fixed land boundary, we've got to work within our framework, and for that it's density, and we're already a dense community, so it's nothing new. It's just taking it to that next level.
For sure. Parking being one that I think one of the changes that's catching more heat, I would say. Let's just skip forward to the traffic one real quick since we're kind of already on that topic.
Well, on that note, though,
let's do it.
I think 430 new units, and quite a lot of those will come with parking. So what we've done here is just that it's up to the developer. And so depending on what you are building and who you're trying to market to, parking will need to come with that.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
We also know from doing surveys of the resident parking permit zone that we have a ton of occupancy there, something like 250 spaces available.
Okay, amazing.
And so, I've lived long enough in this role to see, how some of this can sometimes be a bit of a panic. And then you watch it actually get built and you watch it actually become part of the neighborhood, and then it's not.
Very well said. I think that's a good point. I think people maybe see the rules and start freaking out of what it could be, but the implementation is often different than.
Absolutely. And then, of course we can monitor, we can adjust. But, I think about bylaw 380, which was earlier in my council tenure around 2014. And that basically reduced the amount of parking required for apartment housing. So instead of 1 stall for every 1 unit, it was 0.6 of a stall for every 1 unit. And, that was a big deal. Like that
I don't think like my building that I'm living in would be able to be a thing because we're, I think, under those bylaws.
Right.
Yeah.
So we created 357 units from that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, for me personally, like I said earlier, I lose sleep over where Banffites live and how they're living. I don't lose sleep over where they park.
Fair enough.
And where they're parking.
I'd rather have an apartment than a parking stall.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think, we're very quick to condemn things, but it has to be a give and take, being the limited space, right?
And on the other side of things, we are really working to strengthen our sustainable transportation network. Rome is incredible.
Yeah.
It's gotten leaps and bounds better.
It's amazing. And we offer free local access to locals.
Amazing.
So we have around 400,000 rides a year that are from Banffites. We also recently approved a car share pilot program that will start in the spring.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got e-bike rebates. We are trying to create this situation where you can live car light or car free.
For sure. Like I find myself I own vehicles and we're only really using them to go out of town. Like even if you're doing groceries in town, like it's much easier to go on the bicycle and
good luck trying to find a spot at IGA.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Like, instead of dealing with, I mean, it's kind of slowing down now. It's the best time of year, but I think as a resident of this town, most of us love the outdoors anyways. It's like I don't think the resident vehicles is the issue. Like you mentioned, there's availability of people to park their cars, so that's not people are just quick to freak out on things, right?
And I get it. Change is always hard, right?
Yeah, change is scary to everyone, I think. There's no one that's immune to that, especially as you age. I feel like change becomes more and more scary. But let's talk about some positive things that have happened with housing. 50 Wolf Street, huge step forward when it comes to getting more housing for residents. Like we said, building more density, building new projects. Looking back on that whole process, what lessons can we take forward into new projects?
So we are very much still in the the phases of Wolf Street. So shovels aren't in the ground yet. We've still got to approve the big, borrowing bylaws and whatever to get that off the ground. So just kind of want to temper the expectations there. We're not there yet, but we're getting very close, and it is very exciting.
For sure. And it's been a long journey, right?
Absolutely. And so lessons that we've learned, for example, from our T-New apartments is, around the type of demographics that want to live there. So we know we need to be housing, folks that are single, couples. We have families at T-New. And, we've learned about where the rents need to be. And then when we look at the Astor, we've learned about what a good, price for purchase is. And we've also learned from our wait list. So we have over 300 people on our wait list, and they've indicated they really like studio and 1-bedrooms.
Nice.
And I think that's looking at it through that affordability lens, right? Like, what can people afford?
I was going to say, why do you think that is? And it's probably affordability.
I think so, yeah. And so that's what we're focusing on at 50 Wolf Street is studio and 1-bedroom. What's also really cool about 50 Wolf Street is, and we're going to have to get a better name than that.
Yeah.
Be repeating the civic address over and over.
Yeah.
Is that we're incorporating universal design throughout the whole building so that if you have an accessibility need.
That was a huge point in the debates, at least I tuned into the discussion was universal design being kind of the main push in this new project. Can you take us through what that is?
Yeah, so again, similar to FireSmart, there's universal design, but it's not so much a checklist as a guideline of what you can do. Okay. And so, it's things like ensuring that hallways are a certain width or door frames are a certain width so that you can basically, if an accessibility need comes up, then it's ready.
Already there.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we'll have that incorporated throughout the entire build. We will have 4 accessible units in particular there too. And we do have accessible units at T-New and the Astor as well. So that's really important to us.
I would say so. I think there's one kind of case that comes to mind is this one person in particular just keep their search for housing on Bow Valley Home Finder, all these different internet pages where people look for housing. It's just like has pets and a disability, and it's impossible to find somewhere long term. So I think definitely a great thing to address, and just the design that it won't be limiting to who can live in these units is kind of the biggest point.
Exactly. Exactly. And another really cool thing about this project is the contribution from the POW Foundation. So they gave a $5 million donation for community space, which is another huge need in the community. So we'll have the primary care, family resource network. Sorry, I'm getting my
agencies confused.
Exactly. I need my agency directory in front of me. So we'll have them in there with dedicated space, which is great. We'll have space for food groups and for community meals and things like this. And that's just open to everybody. And really, it just opened my eyes to what's possible. So there was the dream of housing, and then the POW Foundation comes along, and then the dream got even bigger.
Amazing.
And their generosity and the many amazing ways that they continue to contribute to making Banff a happy, healthy, well-connected place just truly touches my heart. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the profits from Caribou Properties is what
for sure
funds the POW Foundation.
They don't need to do that.
Exactly.
They don't need to do that at all. When we had them on the podcast, it was kind of mind-blowing to see how much they take from their personal funds and just put it back into the community, right? Which is something you don't get everywhere else. It's just that weird community feeling where it's hey man, we got enough money, let's give some back, right?
That's such a cool attitude to have, honestly.
Doubt.
I think one that this town needs a lot more of.
Oh, it's so incredible just seeing that tourism giving back to the community. And to your point, you could be doing anything with that money. And
exactly. Yeah. You could go on another vacation, buy a vacation home, buy
exactly.
a nice boat. But they're man, people need help. Let's give some back.
We've kind of touched on it a little bit in our conversation already, being the cost of living and kind of protecting the frontline worker. Like me and Matt, we consider ourselves frontline workers in a pretty good position.
Yeah.
A lot of our other frontline workers don't feel as secure in their jobs. How can we address cost of living for the dishwashers, the housekeepers, the retail workers?
So what we were just talking about, housing, we know that is a huge expense for everybody's daily lives. And so continuing to do our best to have more housing supply come on, that way that hopefully in the next couple years, the rents will come down. We've seen that in places like Austin, Texas, where they implemented sweeping, housing friendly policies, things like that. So I think that is the main way that we're really trying to address affordability. We also have, it's again, like a really exhaustive list of low or no cost ways that people can interact in the community. So whether that's, there's the Library of Things, which you can borrow things for free, right?
Cool.
There's, again, the POW Pass, which lets you access
Community
recreation.
programs, yeah.
Exactly. We've got free community classes. I mentioned Rome was free earlier. We have the Banff Access program, which if you are eligible, gives you access to all kinds of different discounts. So, those are the ways that you can tap in. I think about Banff Life and the programming that they have. And, you mentioned the Harvest Festival earlier. Like we're always trying to put on these, community gatherings where you can just go and not have to worry about what it's going to cost.
True. I think you guys do a pretty good job of that. That's for sure. Especially after Harvest Fest. That was awesome. I just think, the frontline worker is like, I think we got to do a little bit more to protect them. Because at one point, like a lot of frontline workers, dishwashers, housekeepers are finding themselves in a position where they're working 2 jobs. And then at what point do you get to really enjoy Banff if you're having to work 2 jobs to make by, or, you're like, or you're being almost in an extortive situation in a staff accom or something where they got you working so hard in the summer. And then when they're done with you, it's like a see you later type. I know it's not your question to answer because that's on the businesses themselves, but I think it's just questions that I think need to be talked about, because the frontline worker's not there to defend themselves, and often they're the ones that can't speak out.
Well, especially if your housing is tied to your job, like
Yeah.
what are you going to say, right? Like you're not going to come in and be like, oh, this is a horrible situation when, your employer sees it online and they're just like, hey, you're gone. Like we heard what you said online, bingo, bango, out of here. And even on the Overheard page, I know for a while there, what was it? They were like moderating management in town from being on the page because
People's comments were being used against them.
People's comments were being used against them. And then, someone's like, oh, I saw you said this about the business on Facebook. You're kind of out of a job and then you're out of housing. And, a lot of these places are just 24 hours. You lose your job, you're out. So pack up your stuff and go find somewhere to live. And finding a place to live here in 24 hours is just not feasible. It's not, you can't. And I've heard stories of, people losing their housing and their job Christmas Eve. Like, how are you going to find an apartment for Christmas Day? Who's going to help you move on Christmas Day? Like, you know what I mean? So
and we're about at that point too. Like summer's winding down. Yeah. Staffs are going to need thinning. It's an unfortunate reality, right?
Well, this is an illuminating conversation for sure. I think about Banff and Lake Louise Hospitality Association, and they are really proud to advocate on behalf of the workforce, making sure that it's a safe environment. And they do a lot in terms of foreign workers as well. So, I think about them as a resource for some of these folks if they're having a hard time.
Absolutely. I think maybe I don't know, the understanding of temporary contracts maybe needs to be a bit more forward from a business perspective, whereas people think they're, a bit more secure than they really are. But anyways, that's more of a question for businesses than for you. So I won't bore you anymore with that. Let's get back to traffic a little bit. And tourism, obviously, on the rise year after year. What are our plan to deal with the influx of vehicles?
So last Christmas, I was hanging out with my great aunt, and she had some amazing photos from Banff, and I brought one with me because I thought, you know what, this just helps.
I think I've seen this one. It's so good.
So July 59, tell your viewers what you see.
Well, we're looking at July 59. We're looking at the bridge going across, and it is bumper to bumper. It is bumper to bumper. I don't know if you guys can see that, but Very reminiscent of, maybe a couple weeks ago, actually. Just the cars are a little bit older.
Exactly. So I thought, let's just set the scene a little bit here.
Give some perspective. Definitely.
Exactly. This is not certainly a new issue, and it's one that I think, we've been trying to address for quite some time. But I think with our traffic congestion, it has to do with a lot of the external pressures and factors that we're dealing with. So, for example, when we incorporated in 1990, we incorporated and became the land size that we are today. The same road network, basically the same parking capacity.
Yeah.
And then you look an hour and a half down the road, and Calgary's population has doubled since 1990.
Yeah.
100,000 in the last year.
Wow.
And that area in general is one of the fastest growing regions in the country. And so when you think about that,
it makes sense.
Exactly.
I've actually, just a little side note, but kind of on the same topic. I was speaking to someone recently that their uncle or something is in the rental car business in Calgary. And he said that in the past 3 years, they've doubled their fleet twice, and they're sold out every day in the summer. So the demand for rental vehicles is obviously soaring. So it's like, how do we, all the outside pressures are there, sending more vehicles and sending more into the park. How do we mitigate it? It's like,
Well, so, for me, it's about mass transit. So we know, for instance, that year to date, we're up 6% vehicle volumes from last year. And last year was a record year.
It goes up every year.
Exactly. And so it's just about trying to shift folks out of their private vehicles and onto mass transit. And we have a really great case study in On-It Regional Transit, but that only moves about 1% of visitors.
Yeah.
So we need that on the larger scale. You've also probably seen around town more of the private buses coming from Calgary, whether that's Red Arrow, Vivo Green, Flixbus. Of course, we've always had the Airporter and Roosters helping folks get from the airport, which is amazing. But it's really about how do we get people here without their cars? Because I believe we have a lot of space for people. We just don't have space for everyone's cars.
For sure. And I mean, it's just like the phenomena of wanting to take your vehicle across the bridge to drive to the hot spring or to drive and see the nice roundabout of the Fairmont. It's like, how can we disincentivize that? And we're doing a good job with the signage, with, again, intercept parking. We hate seeing more paving parking lots, but, at one point.
Well, even then, like with road transit, like now they're offering like buses out to Minnewanka,
That's awesome.
And like that's definitely probably taken some alleviated some of their parking out there, because you know how it is when you go out that, like I get it. People want to drive the Minnewanka loop. People want to go out there, but there's way easier ways to do it than getting frustrated in a lineup of cars on Minnewanka loop, right? Just take the bus.
Yeah, I think it's a demographic thing too, right? Like, is a family of 4 with young kids going to take a bus with strollers and bags? And like, is an elderly person going to get off and on a bus and work to someone else's schedule, and like using the bathroom might be a concern, or like there's tons of factors that play into it, right?
There's no easy fix. Right?
Yeah, like someone that's going to take a bus is going to be like an able-bodied adult that maybe has a backpack. I don't know. How do we get more people on the bus?
Well, I think a logical thing is coming up with disincentives to driving in your personal vehicle. So maybe to your point, there are incentives for driving in a carpool situation or, on the bus. Like maybe if they ever implement the Canada Strong Pass again, you're giving the free entry to folks who are carpooling or on mass transit.
And like Kaylee had a good point with the Canada Strong Pass and stuff, that other national parks benefit massively from it. Like I brought this up multiple times. It's like, when we talk about different issues in the national park, funding tends to be an issue that's brought up quite a bit. Like, why did the federal government keep letting people come here for free? It just seems like a no-brainer to me.
I think we're just so used to what we know in our home. But when you think about other places that probably see in a year what we see in a day, it's a different perspective.
For sure.
Would you ever consider a cap on vehicles during the summer months? Like, is that even something that's possible for either parks or the town site itself? Is that even possible?
That would be certainly a Parks Canada initiative. So the town of Banff does not have the authority to limit vehicles from entering the town site. That being said, in some ways, our parking capacity right now serves as a bit of a limit, because once it's full, it's full, right? Yeah. And so, I think continuing to think about those disincentives to driving is where we'd want to put our energy. And we have put into our Banff Community Plan looking at a human use management strategy and framework, as well as creating this destination stewardship council. And a big task for them would be to look into this more, right? Mm-hmm. So we know that currently our road network is overcrowded, but does it affect other areas? Our sidewalks, our grocery stores, our restaurants. And I don't think we have that data yet. Mm-hmm. And so council has put that into the plan to study this more and to have a collaborative process with the whole community.
Because you want to disincentivize vehicles, but you don't want to disincentivize people. It's like, it's a very strange tightrope that we have to walk here as far as tourism.
Well, on that note, we're a national park. It's within every Canadian's birthright to come here, every new Canadian's right to come here. Yeah. And we don't want to become a place that's only available to some and not all. And so how do we work through the issue, though, of running out of space to be able to host folks, right? Mm-hmm. So again, I think it goes back to how are we getting people here outside of their cars? I
think a big point, like we talked about this in our pre-meeting months ago, is like jurisdictionally as well. A lot of the townspeople don't get that the town of Banff cannot limit people's movement, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Like we discussed again in our pre-meeting about a parking reservation system, mm-hmm. and it's like, well, you can't tell someone, no, you cannot drive your vehicle on Highway 1 through mm-hmm. the national park and stop in Banff. Like the town does not have the legal authority to tell people to do that.
And we really learned that during COVID,
yeah.
So
sure.
We were under the state of local emergency, but even with that, folks need to come off the highway and have a place to go to the washroom, get mm-hmm. gas, and if they need a hotel stay, right. those are essential services.
For sure. So it's like you can't tell people no. Like it's a strange place to be in, right? Like,
well, I feel like just some of the townspeople it just comes from maybe not understanding that, there's things that town council can and cannot do, right? Like at the end of the day, we all answer to Parks Canada. So it's like, you can't just overstep them and, hey, we're going to do what we want. Like you can't have cars in here. Like it's just, they would just crack down and be like, no, it's not going to happen, right?
But even then, the Parks Canada mandate is for everyone. Right. Like, so mm-hmm. it's in their mandate to not crack down and say you can come, but you can't, right? Like there's being exclusionary, easy, like, yeah, it's weird. But then you don't want to disincentivize people to the point where they're not coming to your tourist town, right? Like,
and this is why I think we need to take a very thoughtful approach to it, mm-hmm. And talk about what's our desired outcome here. Where do we want to be? And, earlier you mentioned trade-offs. Well, this can be an and also, not an either or. How do we ensure that we are protecting the environment and trying to be a sustainable tourism destination? Like, how do we do both? And I think we can. We just need to, again, come together and decide what we want to be and how we will get to there. We'll come out of that. I think it's very natural to always start at tactics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we need to bring this up to that higher strategic thinking of what do we actually want?
Well, I think that's kind of one of the problems of being a leader in all these fields that we are, as far as tourism and sustainability and eco-conscious tourism, is like there's no one to look out or to look up to for solutions, right? Like we're kind of in a tough place that have all these particular problems where we have to find our own particular solutions.
Well, there's no one like us in Canada. Jasper's just now getting their planning authority.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
But until that happens, literally,
we're the only example.
We're one of one. We're the Beyonce of Canada.
Great song choice, by the way.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff. We kind of already answered that one about the concept of over-tourism. Like we're here in the town mandate, we're here to accept tourism. So for people like I just think it's a pretty funny stance to take, and we see it, especially on the Overheard Facebook page all the time, of like people in a tourist town when they see tourists and they're like, oh, it's like,
ooh, they're helping me make my living.
Yeah, like I was once a tourist. Like, as much as you can point the finger at tourism and being like, this is the root of all of our problems, you also don't thank tourism for the opportunity to live here in Banff, right? Like,
I think when we talk about over tourism, it's just very subjective, and it means different things to different people. Right. And it's tough to, have that common definition for it, right? But, I go back to thinking about crowding, and certainly our road network is overcrowded. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we've been focusing on. That's our main pain point. And that is what we hear from residents when they talk about it being overcrowded. They're talking about the road network. And so that's what we've been focusing on. But maybe there's other areas. Like I said earlier, we need to explore sidewalks, grocery stores, restaurants, and just have that holistic conversation.
But it's also not all year round. Like it's a very focused problem in a few months of the year, right? So
that's a really good point. We're a year-round destination, and this is for 2 months of it.
So it's like, how much do you invest in solving a problem that's only there for 2 months? And it's kind of a good problem to have. A lot of people that aren't wanting to come to our town. It's a good problem to have, right? Like,
or just come here at a different time.
Yeah. So
like you mentioned earlier, you really like September, right?
Well, the town has done a great job of, again, incentivizing, especially with like different events that you guys put on, conferences, like hotels selling conferences in the slower months as well. Like, we used to have a pretty crazy dead season here. I don't know if you guys remember, where businesses would close, which wasn't ideal for the frontline worker.
Close the winter, open up in April. It's like, have fun. We'll see you guys in 2 months. Hope you save some cash.
So like, we've gotten to a point where it is sustainable all year round for everyone to stay here, and it's like, it's gone.
Well, and what's interesting too, so peak times we'll have 40,000 people in the town site. But what's interesting when we look at our water supply, our sewer, even our water treatment and our waste management actually, is that consumption's gone down. So we're moving the needle by putting in more, environmentally friendly infrastructure, by changing the way we do certain practices. So we're actually moving the needle environmentally, which Amazing. I find really, really, fantastic, but also really interesting when you have this conversation.
Well, that should be the goal, right? Like,
well, it's just wild that that's the case. Like, visitation has just gone up and up and up. Mm-hmm. It's just wild that we can kind of mitigate those like side effects, I guess, of the massive amount of tourism that we have.
Well, it's definitely something to be aware of. I think our neighbors down the highway are dealing with some issues as far as waste management, which all of a sudden they don't know where it's coming from. But I guess from reports that it's been an ongoing thing in the summer months. But
their water treatment.
Yeah. So it's like something that I guess you don't think of until it's right in your face or right in your nose. Something to be aware of. So it's good to hear you say that we are moving the needle as far as that goes. So great stuff. We talked about moving people into the park without vehicles. What's the latest news on the train station ARP, and what are your personal thoughts on the project?
So council adopted the Railway Lands Area Redevelopment Plan in June 2024, and it's been with Parks Canada since then. They are undergoing the strategic environmental assessment and Indigenous consultation. And so any mitigations or direction that comes out of those processes will then be rolled up into the area redevelopment plan. And then personally, I'm thrilled with the vision at the train station. I think that this plan helps not only just restore it to its former glory, but it helps just bring it to a whole new modern standard. It's going to be the way that folks move seamlessly through Banff and Banff National Park. It's going to help shift people from their vehicles and onto mass transit, or onto bikes, or onto whatever new piece of alternative modes is out by then. And it's really going to be a model that I believe other communities are going to strive for. And, I think that we're really lucky to have the Watchers family investing in Banff and in their community in this way. I'm so excited to see it all start to come to life.
Amazing, because we've heard both sides of the coin depending on who you ask. It's a very varied project. There's lots of obviously infrastructure and development I don't want to say problems, but concerns addressed to it.
And on that note, this is the plan. So this is the aspirational.
For sure. Very, very good to note that
Exactly. And then when you go to every project, there is a whole review and there is a whole system that will look at each project individually and will be reviewed individually. Right. So this is the aspirational plan of where they want to be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything that's in there will be approved. It has to go through its own.
It's not set in stone yet. So
exactly.
Again, like people are so quick to freak out, right? Yeah. Like us included, right? We saw the plans and we discussed it with a variety of people that are for and against. But yeah, it's a very important thing to keep in the back of your mind that a plan doesn't necessarily mean.
Or, it could have mitigations come with it and maybe it'll look different than what's in the plan. But, again, I think what I said when you asked me about lessons learned, we just need to have that shared vision together and understanding of where we're trying to go.
For sure. I think having a council that asks the tough questions and having different perspectives is what we need as a town, especially when it comes to that planning and what's going to happen next, which obviously the town plan being in development right now, we're asking those questions and we're getting there. So awesome stuff. Specifically when it comes to the train station ARP, how do we get people to leave their cars at home and jump on a train?
Well, first of all, have you been on a train recently?
Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
Yeah, no kidding.
You can take a nap, you can read a book, you can look out the window. But I think to your point, I'm not sure that a lot of Calgarians are even aware of the transit that exists right now and their options that exist right now. That's what we're learning from our research, is that they're just not aware. But we continue to advertise and come up with different strategies of how to communicate the offerings. The latest is carfreebanff.ca, and that gives the whole suite of how folks can get here. So, I think the tagline isn't come to Banff and sit in your car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, that's the thing. I serve people, like I said, we're frontline. I'm talking to people that are sitting in my restaurant, even people from Canmore. They're like, I remember one specific guest, oh, yeah, I had to come to Banff in the summer. And it's the local population, almost think it's a dread to come here in the summer. You know what I mean? They avoid it like the plague. And it's almost, I don't know. A lot of them are disheartened that they don't get to come experience it in the summer, or it's too hard for them to get here.
I love summer in Banff.
Me too. It's
it's one of those things where you can make it what you want it to be, right? If I'm going for a run or a bike ride or up tunnel, there's times a day where you're going to be around other people, which I like chatting with other people. You've got all the dad jokes on the way up tunnel, is there a bar up there? Am I going to be able to lay down and recoup up there? You're chatting with folks and you're meeting people from around the world. It's really cool. And, if you're coming from Canmore, my advice is take the Legacy Trail.
Great point.
Get an e-bike, get on your bike, or get on Roam, right? There's options to not make it so painful.
It's just about getting that information out there. We all know how to navigate Banff in the summer, get to stuff early or get there late. But the average person doesn't really know that. I was serving someone the other day, same thing. Oh yeah, we're gonna go do Sentinel Pass tomorrow. I'm like, cool. Which tour group did you book with to get there? And they're like, what? We thought we could just drive there. So it's I think part of that onus has to be on the traveler as well, right?
You got to be able to plan ahead.
For sure. And I think, unfortunately, Banff is one of those places that in the summer needs a lot of planning, especially if you have specific goals and tourist places that you want to get to.
Not just spontaneously coming to Banff for a day in the summer. If you just want to roll out here and get a hotel room and drive up to Lake Minnewanka in the middle of July, you might be in for quite of a shock, because there probably aren't any hotel rooms that are available, or very few at that. And you just got to... A little bit of planning, then. It goes a long ways. You can't fail to plan your vacation out here adequately and then come out and complain.
Well, that's what I think is a good distinction to make. I don't think tourists or tourism is what's frustrating to the average Banffite. It's maybe the uninformed tourist that is the more frustrating point. The one that maybe doesn't know. It's how do we get that information in their heads or in their hands before they get here, right? And one of the points that was the train, being messaging on the train and different things is like, yeah, it just raises interesting questions on how we can get more info out to them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think we want every visitor to have an enjoyable experience here. We want them to be able to see what they want to see and experience those attractions that they'd like to go to. And so I think it's important that we continue to give out that kind of messaging, right? Like this summer when I was doing a lot of media, it was around, hey, Calgarians, maybe come at 5 p.m.
For sure. I tell people that all the time. Go to Lake Louise now. Like you're done dinner at 6. Go there now. You'll be able to park right there.
And it's still really nice.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So, I think it's just about, trying to help them navigate and have that experience that they want to have.
Because it could be disheartening for sure. You think you're going to have a great day and you end up sitting in traffic and then not finding parking and then being late for your whatever that you had planned and blah, blah, blah. So, but what onus is that on the town, right? Like people got to do their own research too at the end of the day. Right now, the community plan is being developed. I think you guys had big meetings yesterday about the community plan, right? What's the single most transformative goal in there, in your opinion?
There's so many. So we have a vision statement that speaks to where we want to be in 2040. And so within
2040.
that... Yeah. So the plan's meant to be a 10-year, but we're looking at, how do these goals in here help us get us all the way out to 2040, and if we've achieved everything, what does the town look like? And so there's so much in there, and a lot of what we've already talked about, ensuring that tourism protects this place and that it also gives back to this community. We have, for the first time ever in a community plan, language around really celebrating and strengthening our Indigenous connections and relations,
which is a huge point. Often forgotten about, I think, when we're talking about business and tourism and dollars and cents, is the connection that humans have to this place and have for a long, long time. Like,
absolutely. Banff Lake Louise Tourism just came out with an Indigenous tourism strategy, and I know they're working really hard to try and reduce those barriers to doing business here for Indigenous folks. And we've seen good examples of that. The Minithpa pop-up that happens on Banff Ave in the summertime. And, I've had so many conversations with folks about, how we can try and make it easier. And so that's part of that vision for sure. So that's, I think, a transformational goal. But the really big one to me is by 2040, we are making the bold statement that we want to resolve our housing crisis. And we want to be able to have...
It's a bold statement.
It's a bold statement. Yeah. Capital BOLD.
Well, we said it. I mean, bold solutions require bold, implementation, bold strategies, right? Like...
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't think playing it safe on a topic that's been that big of an issue is the way forward, right? So
I think about that too, that what we've done to date have served us to get us where we are. And if we are still in a crisis, then we need to look to other solutions and how we could take it that much further, right? Because it's only gotten us to where we are today.
Very true. Very true. How has the community feedback helped shape the plan moving forward? Like, there was a huge community input yesterday. That was like a community session, if I was...
Yeah, that was our second public hearing on the plan, and well attended. And yeah, I mean, when I think about this Banff Community Plan, I like to say that it was made by the community for the community. We had an advisory committee made up of a diverse group of residents, and they were really instrumental in helping guide the process and advise the administrative team that was working on the plan. We also had open houses. We had so many different stakeholder meetings. We had an online survey. Okay. We also drew from so many other plans that were recent, like the Lead Tourism for Good plan and the, our other documents like our citizen satisfaction survey. I mean,
it's like an amalgamation.
There's a document, we've got it.
Yeah.
And so certainly the community has their fingerprints on this plan.
It's important to know that if you're out there and you're like, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Well, with a little bit of forethought and a little bit of planning, you can attend these and you can give your own opinion, which is listened to by our council. So I think people underestimate their power when it comes to the judicial process or the legislative process, I would say.
And then another point, kind of what we talked about with the train station ARP, is that this is the plan, this is the aspirational, but then within every goal of how we're going to get there, is likely going to be a conversation at council, a conversation with the community. So there's entry points to being part of the process. Like, it doesn't just end here once we adopt this plan.
For sure.
Like, if you're interested in housing, or if you're interested in transportation or environment, whatever it is, like, there's a place for you to come and be
voice
involved.
your concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. In the town plan, lots of rezoning. Some critics have said that it's a slippery slope towards expansion and expanding our footprint in the town of Banff. What are your thoughts, or what would you say to those critics?
That is not the intent whatsoever. No one wants to expand the town of Banff. We simply want to correct some anomalies. So we have a restaurant and a gas station that are in residential districts, and we would just like that to be better reflected as to what they are now.
Yeah, fair.
And, for those businesses, they can even, update their garbage to have bear-proof bin enclosures because they're not compliant. Another example is the industrial compound. So right now, the public works yard for Town of Banff and Parks Canada is zoned commercial. We're never going to put commercial services out there. We need that for public
that
service.
Commercial cap can be used elsewhere.
No, I think we'd be looking at reducing it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we just want it to reflect in that instance that that's public service. So we'd essentially be giving back commercial allotment and reducing our commercial footprint.
That's definitely not what the critics would say about that. Like, a lot of people have framed it as like almost like a red herring to potentially having development further, which I just wanted to give you the floor to dispel it.
Thank you. We also have it spelled out in the community plan that we will not go beyond our commercial limits. We will work within those with everything that we do. And I would also say that the communities of Field and Jasper had similar amendments done through their community plans, and they have not expanded. And I would say that we are in alignment with Parks Canada as to the intention here, which is to correct some anomalies through a process. So we'll explore that with Parks, and ultimately Parks Canada has the final say. And so it's a pretty short conversation. Well, if the answer is no.
It's reassuring. I think people just want there to be this like big conspiracy, or this like, they look too much into it maybe, or like. Yeah,
like, I appreciate the perspective and certainly that second sober thought. And sometimes, maybe we're not great at articulating what the goal is, but I think we've tried to do a better job of explaining what our intention is. And that is to basically correct two anomalies in town where there's commercial businesses in residential districts, and to look at changing our public works over to public service instead of commercial.
Amazing. And those I think are things that the average townsperson would not be so much against if they, but there's a way of framing things, right? Like, depending on what your own goals or intentions are, to make something seem nefarious when it might not be. A lot of debates in Banff boil down to tension between conservation goals and commercial development, as we're talking about now. How do you feel we should approach this moving forward? Obviously, we talked about housing and upping density. We're going to need some development at some point. How do we navigate that?
I have so many conversations with provincial and federal leaders and ministers. And when I explain some of our challenges, sometimes it's, well, how come you guys just don't cut down those trees and build housing there? Or how come if, you want this kind of tourism development happening, how come you can't just do it over there? And so it always comes back to the three pillars, which are, we have a commercial cap, we have a need to reside, and we have a fixed land boundary. And those three are a blessing. I have talked to all sorts of elected officials from other mountain communities that are so envious that we have these three things. And so, I think it just comes down to respecting those pillars and knowing that our natural environment is our biggest asset, and we need to protect it in this changing climate. And that is a common goal that whether you're environment or tourism or a community member, we all share that.
Well, I think we all kind of fall into one of those categories, is not all three. Like, I was once a tourist here, and now the more we're digging into these topics, the more I find myself caring about the environment and looking into how development can and should happen within the park boundary, and like discussing with developers. It's almost like they don't want to come develop here due to the high standard that we have for our town. So that's another weird, like, you know, like I said, I've talked about my building quite a lot that I live in, and the way that it was constructed. Like, is it for the best of, like, I don't know. I feel like they were allowed to cut corners in a way that the building itself isn't really what should be the standard. But again, they brought more density and they brought more parking and underground parking. So it's like, what is the trade-off, or where is the line? You know, it's.
Well, with our town of Banff builds, we like to believe that it can be affordable and aesthetically beautiful. You know, look at Tinu, look at the Astor. Like,
They're beautiful buildings.
they're gorgeous buildings. So we live by the philosophy that you can have it both ways.
Nice.
But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I think we're quick to be like one or the other. As we inch closer to the municipal election, what should residents be most aware of, in your opinion?
That there is an election.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our big goal. Like, get people motivated and involved.
Absolutely. October 20th, 2025. That is our next municipal election. And we'll run through, you know, who can vote and when and things like that. But I think, yeah, just being aware that this is happening, and that, you know, it's important that your council is reflective of your community, because those are the folks who are sitting there making decisions about your current life and future lives of Banffites. So it's really important that it's reflective of Banff.
I would agree with you there for sure. Well, we mentioned it. Who can and can't vote? We got lots of different residents in our town, some that have citizenships from other countries, some that are here on PR or on tourist visas. Who can vote?
So to be able to vote, you need to be a Canadian citizen, at least 18 years old, live in Alberta, and your place of residence is Banff on election day, which is October 20th. Now, last year, council passed a motion basically asking for Alberta municipalities, that's our lobbying group to the provincial government, to ask the province to look at permanent residents being able to vote in municipal elections. So in Banff, 37% of residents are
That's
foreign
huge.
born.
huge.
Yeah,
Right.
that's crazy.
37%.
Very unique position to be in, right?
Exactly. And you think about how those folks are contributing to this community. They may be business owners. They're certainly working here. They're volunteering here. They've made their life here, and yet they can't be a part of this process. So we tried to lobby for that change.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere. It ultimately failed at the bigger conference where all the municipalities are gathered. But it's something that I'll definitely keep advocating for, because I think it's really important that PRs would be able to vote.
Well, that's it. Like, we're talking about being the voice of the people and all these concepts of representing the population. And especially, you know, I hate to bring it up again, but the ped zone stuff, like, there's a bunch of people that weren't allowed to vote, to have their say in that.
Right.
Would that have changed?
Well, and those are
outcome.
people that affected too, right? Like, how many of those people work and use Banff Ave on the daily? They need to cross Banff Ave, or you know, to get to work. It's like it's just crazy that they're.
But there's also the other side of, like, you don't get to go on vacation and change the laws somewhere, right? Like,
Well, yeah, but I mean, PR is a different.
PR is different. I'll give you that, right?
like,
So I don't know. It's
And we were really trying to hone it in on municipal, because the province is in charge of how municipal elections look like. So this wouldn't be for provincial. It wouldn't be for federal. Those are different
and again,
documents.
Like, we're a one of one. So, like, what if it could be just the town of Banff?
Yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
But on that note, I've had two different opportunities where I've had a vote for a plebiscite in front of me. One was for pay parking back in my first term. And then there was a vote on having a plebiscite ahead of what ultimately became the valid petition that took us to the vote of the electorate for the pedestrian zone. And both times I was against it for that very reason, that it's not a holistic approach to having those kinds of community conversations. And you learn so much from those conversations. Like paid parking, we learned, if folks can have 3 hours free downtown and we can protect their parking in front of their house, then we're good.
You're pretty stoked about it, yeah.
You don't learn that on a yes or no ballot card. And so I find just a broader community conversation is going to be way more meaningful than a yes or no plebiscite question.
Oh, for sure.
It's very well said. That's a big part of what we're trying to do is get into the ears of people so they A, know what's going on, and B, we can have these conversations. So I think more heads together is always a good thing, right?
Can't let one person run the whole show. I mean, that's not a very good community strategy. You know what I mean? It's like we want these people to come into the council and meetings and help shape those decisions, right?
Collaboration is good. But like one quote that I actually clipped from the Peter Poole episode is that he said he was seen as being combative for asking tough questions, which for me, that's what our council should be doing, right?
So I served with Peter, and I think he did a really good job of being thorough, and I think I related it later once he was done. He kind of gave his swan song is what he called it.
Okay.
And then I was asked to, give some comments about what it was like, working with Peter. And I think I was like, because he used the bird analogy and he's a birder.
Of course.
So I was like, he's a woodpecker. Like he's going to drill in there down to the heart of an issue, and he's not afraid to ruffle feathers. And
definitely not.
I think he sparked a ton of debate that council would not have had otherwise. And I think, to your point, that that's really healthy and that's really important.
For sure. I think we don't have to get along to move forward, I think is a big point. The different perspectives at the table will only help us flourish and find new solutions, right? So I think that's one thing we should keep in mind moving forward. How can citizens and Banff residents know or make sure that they're registered to vote?
So this is where, there's my dad. Remember earlier I said from my office I can see people? He's got his reusable bag in his hand.
Amazing.
This is what I love about Banff, right? I'm sitting here doing an interview with you guys, and I'm like, there's my dad.
Well, it's funny. I didn't know that I knew your dad long before we met.
Yeah,
and then I was like, oh my God, that's your dad?
Tony!
Yeah, awesome.
So back to the question.
Yes.
There are, first of all, some advanced voting opportunities.
Cool.
So October 11th, 15th, and 16th. And you can also get a special voting ballot if you're going to be away for any voting day.
Cool. Okay.
And I would encourage everyone just to go to banff.ca/election because that's where all of the information is. But to your question, new this year, municipalities need to create a voter list.
Okay.
And so if you haven't registered yet, which that deadline has passed, so I won't throw another date out there to confuse people, then just give yourself a bit more time when you go to vote because you'll need to fill out a form at the election station.
Okay. Is there any proof that people need to prove the residency or?
Yes, exactly. So you'll need driver's license or if you have an Alberta ID card, or you can bring your Canadian passport. And then if you don't have those, you can show other forms of ID. So I'm going to become a robot here and tell you a bunch of those.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can bring bank credit card statement or personal check. I don't know who still has checks. Insurance policy or coverage card, pension plan statement of benefits, contributions, or participation. You can bring a residential lease or mortgage statement, a utility bill. So that means your telephone, television, electric, gas, water, or you can even bring your vehicle ownership registration or insurance certificate.
Because something would have to have your address on it, right?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
I look at my ID, it has my P.O. box, which doesn't really have an address, like physical address, but
P.O. box.
I think they would count that too, right?
Just bring everything.
Yeah, bring everything. Better to need it or whatever. Have it, not need it.
Exactly.
Need it, not have it. What's
exactly.
that thing? You want to ask the big question, Matt?
Well, the election is coming up, and I'm sure everybody's wondering, are we going to be running for re-election this year?
It has been a highlight and an honor of my life to be the mayor of Banff. I'm so grateful for the opportunity that Banffites have given me to lead the community this term. And I feel that we have moved the needle on so many important areas.
Sure.
And so I'm really proud of council for that for this term, but I feel there's more work to do. And so I am running for re-election.
Amazing.
And I will launch my campaign soon, and I look forward to connecting and talking with Banffites then.
Beautiful. Well, congratulations. I
Thank
think
you.
from my perspective, at least, you've done a great job since taking office. And
Thanks, Dan.
like you said, moving the needle on any of these ecological goals, transit goals,
Right.
and not being scared to tackle the issues head on, I think is what I can commend you for. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us today. We will have you back on once your campaign is in full swing formally.
I'd love that.
If you want to come back, we can have another chat and kind of dive into more specifics of what we're going to focus on leading into the campaign.
Okay.
If it's your first time joining us, don't forget, hit that like and subscribe. We got plenty more election coverage coming to you. Go check out our Harvest Fest footage. We did tons of interviews this weekend
That's right.
with tons of great local acts, vendors, and just friends of ours. So yeah, lots of fun times were had. There's some good laughs on there. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you to Drink Shaft for sponsoring our episode. Thank you to the Rose and Crown as well for sponsoring this episode. Any closing thoughts?
I listened to the last episode that you did, and you asked, what are you most hopeful for the future of Banff?
I'm so sorry. I skipped the last one.
And so it made me just really think about it. And, I think I'm just hopeful, thinking that Banff can be a place where people can make a life, make a living, and make a difference.
That's, again, a big part of why we're asking these questions. I want to make my life here. I want to have a family here. How can we all make it work? You know what I mean? That's kind of that's why we're here today.
Mm-hmm.
So
No doubt.
awesome. Thank you so much again. Sharing
you
your
for
office
having
with us
me.
for, I
Thank
don't
you.
know, an hour or so. Go grab your Drink Shafts, alcoholic and non-alcoholic at Townhouse Liquor or Rose and Crown. They got a glizzy tower at the Rose and Crown. Good day for a tower on the patio. The smoke's actually looking like it's cleared up today.
Mm-hmm.
So great news.
What is a glizzy?
Glizzy's a hot dog.
Hot dog tower. It's like this big thing.
Okay,
We still got to go get one.
They got
at
these
some point.
they got like a sweet merch shirt where it's like a hot dog and it's like advertising the Glizzy Tower and it says one is not enough or something along those lines.
Okay.
It's so sweet.
That's awesome.
Go check them out. Grab yourself a tower. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. And like every week, see you next Tuesday.